President Donald Trump has urged Iranians to keep protesting against the Ayatollah regime and said, and I quote, "Help was on the way," without giving any details, as Iran's clerical establishment pressed its crackdown against the biggest demonstrations in years, egged on by the exiled crown prince of Iran. So that is the message that's coming in from Donald Trump to the protesters in Iran. As per Reuters, that over 2,000 people have died in the crackdown coming in from the Iranian regime. But Donald Trump has sent this message to the people of Iran that help was on the way. So what is the US cooking when it comes to the situation in Iran as the crackdown only intensifies against the protesters on the ground? Remember, this was also egged on by the exiled crown prince, who has called for a regime change inside Iran. I'm joined by my colleague Akanksha Swaroop on the broadcast. So Akanksha, the Trump regime keeping the whole world guessing about the next plan of action.
Right, and more importantly, we can expect a very crucial White House meeting to be happening between President Trump and the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, along with the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, where perhaps they will be discussing the next plan of action. Reports have already suggested that certain locations and the intel inputs have been placed before the U.S. President a day ago already. But more importantly, Ayushman, as you were rightly referring to, the President's latest tweet about, in fact, that post on Truth Social, referring to how help is coming, it's on its way, and that the Iranian regime will pay a big price. He's also gone on to indicate that he's cancelled all meetings with Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. Help is on its way. And remember, this is coming from a president who's also often analyzed or compared with the Mad King, because Donald Trump is somebody who's known to do what he says. Will he send boots on the ground, or will that mean a cyber attack? Because remember, Lindsey Graham has, in fact, who's a very close aide to Donald Trump, has already indicated that Donald Trump's message of help to Iranian protesters is referring to military or cyber attacks. And that is something we'll have to see. The next 24 to 48 hours are going to be extremely crucial, given that we've already seen that 12-day battle between Israel and Iran in the month of June last year, where U.S. had also conducted strikes on nuclear sites. But remember, this time alone, they will not be precision strikes. U.S. will have to be very careful in case it does go the whole hog as far as military might or any strategic action is concerned, because the protests are involved, the civilians are involved. 2,000 is already the official death toll as far as protesters are concerned, and U.S. would not want to jeopardize the civilian population. The protests have already entered, say, the hinterlands of Iran, and this is now ballooning into a greater national revolution. But Ayushman, at the same time, top Iranian officials like Ali Larijani have also responded to Donald Trump's threats. They've gone on to say that they will declare the names of the killers of the people of Iran, and that is Donald Trump and Netanyahu. And that only goes on to indicate that Iran is not going to back down. But we are also seeing that U.S. is garnering heavy support from its European allies. Germany, Spain, France, Portugal, Belgium, Finland, the Netherlands, and Czech have already summoned Iran's ambassadors today itself over the massacre of Iranian protesters. So here you can see that there's a unified Western response, very much in line with the United States. So we'll have to see what happens and how the U.S. chooses to respond to the ongoing crackdown on the protesters. The death toll is ballooning, it's rising, and it's already crossing 2,000. Remember, this is only the official figure. Analysts and doctors in various hospitals have indicated it could be far more.
Right. And let's get an overview of what Lindsey Graham had said. He's also made this point extremely clear that there is no bigger threat to the world order than the Iranian Ayatollah's religious Nazi regime, is the pitch that's come in from one of Donald Trump's key aides, Lindsey Graham. And Donald Trump, and I quote, has said on Truth Social, Iranian patriots, keep protesting, take over your institutions, is what Donald Trump has said. Save the names of the killers and abusers. They will pay a big price. I have cancelled all meetings with Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. Help is on its way, is what Donald Trump has said. He's also used the term MEGA, Make Iran Great Again. President Donald J. Trump is the sign-off that he's given on that Truth Social post. To decode this further, I'm also joined by Ashok Sajjanar, former diplomat on the broadcast. Thank you, sir, for joining us on the broadcast here at CNN News 18. Your first reaction to Donald Trump's statement coming in that help is on its way, and his aides are saying that this is likely going to be military as well as cyber attacks on the Iranian regime. Do you see the words of the Trump administration and Donald Trump himself as pure brinksmanship, or do you think some military strategy is in the works?
Yeah, thank you very much, Ayushman, for having me. The way I look at it is that number one, this is the worst and the most serious threat to the Islamic regime in Tehran that has, emerged over the last 46 years. It's not that this is the first time that protests are taking place in Iran. Protests have taken place earlier. 2022, we saw in the case of Masa Amini, 2019, before that 2009. So there have been protests that have been happening, but the manner in which these have come. The second point is, it is these protests are being led by the bazaar, by the market, by the traders. And it is the traders who had brought Ayatollah Khomeini to power in 1979. So, there is some sort of a correlation between what happened in 1979, because I was in Iran just after that, and I have observed how, but at that time, there was a leader. The biggest problem for the protesters this time is there is no leader. It's a leaderless, it's an organic, these are organic protests, but still, starting December 28th, 15 days, and it has spread to all the 31 provinces, 180 sort of, cities and all that sort of things. But that having been said, I think things are very difficult for the regime. The most ominous, as you said very correctly, Ayushman, the most ominous wording in Trump's threat and warning is that help is on its way. Now, what does he really mean by that? Otherwise, one could say, this whole policy of 25% additional tariffs on countries which are doing business with Iran, which are trading with Iran, that could be a policy of maximum pressure on the Iranian government. But when he says help is on its way, that means there will be some action definitely by the United States or by Israel or by both, kinetic action as well as cyber action. So, we'll really have to wait and see as to what happens and how does it come about.
Right, but Mr. Sajjanar, when it comes to American allies in the region like Turkey as well as Israel, Israel's always been banking on the United States to move the needle further when it comes to taking action against Iran. But what about the other allies, American allies in the region? Do they fear a destabilization if America takes overt military action against the regime? At the same time, talking about the nature of the protest like you're indicating, do you think Iran has only perfected the art of putting down these kind of rebellions? What is your perspective on these two aspects?
Yeah, so first, the second part first, that is in terms of, this is actually the standard rule book that they have been following, even in the case of Masa Amini. You would see that the protest started for the first 2 weeks, they let them be. They did not take such very harsh action. It's only from the third to the fifth week. So they lasted only about 3 to 5 weeks. And that has been the standard format of the other protests also, 3 to 5 weeks. But I think these protests are different because they have really spread very quickly and become very violent, because it really affects the daily living life or lives of the people. The manner in which the currency has depreciated 1.4 million reals to a dollar, meaning that is huge. And so that means the inflation has gone up and people are not able to buy. So while, you mentioned the figure of 2000, I was on another program where, there were human rights activists who said that 12,000 people have been killed in 48 hours. Now, when there are protests of this nature or war, then, truth is the first casualty. So you can never know, and they have shut off the internet. But this much is clear that, hundreds of body bags have been seen in Tehran by people, and there have been pictures that have been coming. So, it could be they could come with a very heavy hand on the protesters in the coming days, and hope that as they have been able to quell the protests in the past, that right now also they'll be able to do that. Now, as far as the first part of your question about the regional players, there are two aspects to this, I think. Number one, no one wants instability because, Iran, let us face it, is a big country. In fact, its area is half the size of India, 1.6 million square kilometers. India is 3.2 million. And it is a population of more than 90 million. It is, you combine 10 countries of Middle East and they would still not be equivalent to Iran. It is a big country and it is a high population. So no one will want instability. That is the first point, because if there is instability, there is no leader. Mr. Reza Pahlavi is trying to sort of, get into the vacuum, but I don't think he enjoys much traction either in on the streets of Iran or in Washington D.C. or in the capitals of Europe. So he might have some little support here and there, but he can't really uh, get to lead this movement as it exists. So instability no one wants. However, Iran has been a destabilizing factor in this region, with the Hamas, Hezbollah, help to Syria, Bashar al-Assad, and Houthis, etc., etc. So they would not be too unhappy to see the end, the last of the Islamic Revolution. That having been said, over the last 2 years, we have seen that relations between Iran and Saudi, Iran and UAE, they have been improving. So I think it is they will not take any preemptive action as such, either to push the Ali Khamenei regime out. But one point I could mention, if you permit, just half a
Go ahead, go ahead, go
uh,
ahead.
one point, Masood Pezeshkian, he is supposed to be a moderate. He's supposed to be a liberal. Now, you see, when Masa Amini riots took place, then there were death to dictator, death to Khamenei, death to Raisi, who was the president at that time. This time, we have heard death to dictator, death to Khamenei, but nothing about Pezeshkian at all. So, this ire of the people, this wrath of the people is more against the Islamic regime of Ali Khamenei rather than of Pezeshkian.
Right.
So if there is a group of some, moderates and liberals who can sort of, come have negotiations and, try to quell the protest while getting Ali Khamenei, in any case, he's more than, he's an
Right.
old person, get him out of the way.
We've also seen that reaction coming in from the National Security Council of Iran, saying that we announced the names of the main killers of the people of Iran. That's number one, Trump, and number two, Netanyahu. So Iran's hitting back at both Israel and United States. But very quickly, I remember during the Iraq war when I was in school, the point of sectarian violence was the big concern. And we saw that wave of sectarian violence after the ouster of the Saddam Hussein regime. Is that also a concern, that if something like that happens in Iran, if there is a regime change, and Iran has a history of that regime change at the behest of the United States, could that sectarian violence spread to other parts of the Middle East beyond Iran?
Not really. There are some other minor communities, whether it is in southeast or it is in northeast, those there are. But otherwise, I think it is by and large. it's a Shia community
Right.
by and large. But of course, there are some Sunni segments also. I don't think that is such a
Concern.
major threat, of sectarian violence. And we have to see that basically the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary
Guard.
Corps, yeah,
Yeah.
that and the army, they have by and large, they have stayed united and they have stayed, in support of the Islamic regime.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Sajjanar, for decoding that for us. So, a lot of dynamics at play when it comes to the situation inside Iran. And as we were pointing out, top Iranian official Ali Larijani has responded to Trump's threats, saying that we declare the names of the main killers of the people of Iran. Number one, Trump, and number two, Netanyahu, is the pitch that has come in from one of the key security analysts as well as the security chiefs inside Iran.